So what I would want us to do is work in groups today because we are going to be looking at how to develop our content for our videos. Before the end of the day today, every one of you should be able to walk out of here with an outline of what you're going to be doing for your video for the competition. So I'd like to get an idea of who I have in the room here in terms of, let me see, anybody who works in or with video production. Okay, so what we're going to learn today, the first thing we're going to look at is developing what is called a narrative arc. And that's actually all we're going to learn today, how to develop a narrative arc. So for those of you who have done this before, okay, what's happening over in that corner? Arc, A-R-C. Yeah. If I had a little whiteboard, I'd be doing the writing and stuff, but okay. So who wants to hold the pen and write for me? Gentleman in blue is smiling. Thank you. All right? That's, for me, one of the best ways to learn because I don't know about you all, but I don't know everything. And it's always interesting to find out what we know and to share with one another. At least that's my concept. So let me start on the left. Any idea what the narrative arc is in storytelling?
Okay, the narrative arc is like the points at which the story flows. Like
The points at which
there's
the
a
story flows.
beginning, middle, end.
Very good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Image said the point at which the story flows, beginning, climax,
Mm-hmm.
and an end. That's what I think.
Excellent. So we're getting that there? Narrative arc, beginning, middle, end. Oh, we're going a little too fast?
What is said in the story?
Say again?
What is said?
What is said in the
Yeah,
story?
yeah.
Yes. And my lady?
Nothing much. I was just thinking it was a sequencing of the story. So
The sequencing of the story. Excellent. So you see, from people who thought they had no idea what the narrative arc is, that's your narrative arc. And it is, right, sequencing. We also had beginning, climax, and end. In video production, whether it is a movie that you're producing, a commercial, a documentary, a film on whatever subject, there's a narrative arc that's generally followed. The arc could look somewhat different, but we're thinking in terms of a bell curve. So you start low and then go on up. So low, up, right, and then come back down on the other side. Lovely. Your narrative arc. You have an introduction. You have a beginning. That is where you introduce your characters, your story, your subject, your setting, your place. Don't write all of that. Right? So you have your beginning, and then the story generally climaxes. There can be a catalytic event, a catalyst for change, something that makes the story interesting, that makes it worthwhile, and then you have a conclusion. So you can add to beginning. You have 3 lines there. Introduction. Introduction. Climax. Conclusion. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I'm going to be teaching you today. Was that an easy class or what? Great, now the fun starts. Everybody understand this concept of narrative curve? Anybody unsure as to what it is? No? Brilliant. Now, because we have such a limited space of time, we're going to take a look at some ads. And once the ad is done, we're going to discuss the narrative curve.
This is Gordon. He's running for class president against his opponent, Mackenzie. To organize his campaign, Gordon is using Do, the new app that makes it easy for any team to get work done. Gordon's fully vetted campaign staff is never right. They're always organized and in sync. When they get assignments on Do, they let each other know if they can do it and win. Mackenzie isn't using Do for her campaign, relying instead on email, texts, meetings, and blind faith. While on Gordon's team, Dusty provides the muscle, Olivia spreads the word, Alexis creates propaganda. When they're done, they mark it done. Since Do is social, Gordon's team can share documents and make comments on the fly. Even during the throes of the campaign, Gordon can use Do for any of his projects. And wherever the campaign trail takes him, instant notifications keep Gordon apprised of all relevant activity. It's the big day, but since Gordon and his staff harness the power of Do, counting the votes is a formality. His team knew what to do, and they got it done.
I'll just deal with one aspect, the introduction. I think it was clear, the idea from upfront, that you had two persons running for a particular campaign, running for office, and they were showing the different ways that they were proposing to plan their campaigns. So that was laid out. We saw the persons, the two main persons, and what they were planning for.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Now let us build on that. What did you see? How did they set it up? Did you have a comment, my friend from Suriname? No? Okay, I have a little technique that I like to use when 55 people are staring at me. My lady in grey. Hi. So let us talk about what you saw in the introduction. And of course, we know now that anybody who speaks has to go to the mic so that we can hear. Yeah, that's not too tough, right?
Okay. So you want me to build on what he said?
Yes, what we're looking at in terms of the discussion is by the end of this session, we want to have a real understanding of the different elements of developing your narrative curve. This is what you're actually going to be using when it's time to produce your video, right? This session today, when you leave here, everybody should have a very clear idea of, you don't need to know what medium that you're going to use. That's not what I'm asking you for. You don't need to know all of the details of what you're going to write in your script, but the basis of whatever you do, however you do it, comes if you understand this narrative curve. So I want us all to have a clear understanding, and trust me, I will be asking the same questions over and over to all of you to make sure that you do have an understanding of the concept. So when you look at the videos, take your notes as you have to, because I will ask every single one of you to talk before this day is over. So, go ahead.
Well, I would assume the climax or the midpoint was.
No. We're looking still at the introduction,
Still.
right? No, that's okay. That's okay. It's a learning experience. So, what are the things that you saw at the start of the video?
The
The
U.S.
first-
flag, but
Say again?
the flag. So
The
I
flag.
know, kind of have an idea of what market they seem to be looking at, and then you see the two opponents just sitting there quietly, and then you hear the voice over, and I guess some background music that's kind of like
That's just
building, but
building.
still kind of quiet.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. That's very good. So you see how in this instance, the narrative starts where they do, you can take a seat, thank you. Where you start building on what is going to come later on. My dear, talk to me about what you saw at the start, the introduction. You want to use this one? Come on.
What I saw initially was the fact that the camera zoomed right in on the character on the right, which is a young man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the narration starts with him speaking, but you weren't hearing anything he was saying, but the narration started describing him.
Excellent.
And showed, in my view, dominance. And I knew he was going to win the election eventually, because of the way he was attired as well.
Excellent.
And then when they moved to the left,
Mm-hmm.
she was there as if she don't know what she's about, why she's there, and she was contested in an election. So the narration and the way the focus was on the particular character.
That is an excellent point, because that is a technique that you would use to show the importance of the character or whoever might be your lead. And bear in mind, a character does not have to be a person, depending on what your subject matter is. Excellent. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
What I noticed was in the beginning they had like a hook, as in it engaged the audience. It had these children, and then immediately it went into like this kind of political thing. So children and politics doesn't connect really, but because it was different, as in they would just delved in it from that angle. Now you're hooked to watch. I mean, if they had used a normal business setting and normal politicians or whatever, you would have I mean, it might have lost some meaning.
That's
but
right, you
but
might
because
not
they
pay
used these
attention.
children and you didn't, they already hooked you, and it's like, oh, they're gonna be in this political battle or whatever.
That is exactly right. And when I was actually doing some research on the development of this ad, they talked about that in terms of getting people. I'm sorry, you haven't been standing there all the time, have you?
Yeah.
My bad. You may relax. I am relying on you all to take your notes as we go through the session. I like the idea of handouts, but never at the start of a class, because what you take out of this experience should be what is relevant to you. Not everybody here needs to know what I'm saying at any particular point in time. Some of you need to know all of it. Some of you already know some of it. So take your notes, make sure that you make this a worthwhile experience for yourself. As I was saying, when I was doing the research for this ad, that actually is one of the things that they mentioned in terms of making it interesting, juxtaposing children as politicians. So that did work. Did I have, yes, thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
So something that I really noticed is that at the beginning, the introduction was extremely slow, and it started off with, I don't know if you call that a panning effect or a zoom in effect. When it is, they zoomed in into this child showing their authoritative, like how they are.
Yes.
And like when it is they zoomed in there, then you realize, oh shucks, something's about to happen. So
Yes.
that's what I noticed. So, yeah.
Lovely, lovely. Any other things that we noted about the introduction?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. What I noticed from the film, from the introduction, is that the style of advertising is like how the first, young boy, how he advertised with messaging, more high-tech than they say with phones and so on, and messaging and so on. And the other group was more paperwork, flyers, whatnot, and so on. Okay?
Excellent. So from the start of this presentation, you get the scene being set, the stage being set for what is to come. So you get different clues. One side uses technology, one side is still hanging out using, outdated modes to try and get things done. So that's the start. Where does this story climax?
I could define the climax at one point for me. To me, where climax was when they mentioned the propaganda, and basically the propaganda, because that was funny and that it built up to that, and they used in the communication. they showed you that you could use the communication to do this, that, sync everybody, and then do it to propaganda, use it for propaganda. So I was like, oh wow.
Yes.
And then it went, and that, if I had to pick I mean, that area was the climax, but if I had to pick a point where it climaxed, would be that when she had the sheet there and
the propaganda,
yeah.
that was it for you. Excellent. All right, my lady.
With consideration of the balance that you had at the beginning, I think the climax for me was showing the disparity in the two teams now.
Mm-hmm.
They started on a level playing field, and now you have chaos and you have a smooth operating system on the other team.
Yes, thank you. Because of the nature of what this is, the whole purpose, this is part of a series called Introducing the Athletes. This was in preparation for the Olympics. So how did they choose to do that? By having the athletes tell their story. So you have an intimate, close setting. There's a lot of information packed into this. This is less than 3 minutes. There's a lot of info. But what they do is they have it almost in sound bites. And they made it chronological, and they talked about the critical points along her road that got her to the Olympics. So this one, it wouldn't be this high curve. It's actually more of a gradual curve, as somebody mentioned that word. But what they do to make this work is they have the elements of an effective story. And that's a very good observation, my lady in pink, because there is more than one climax. And in storytelling, that is sometimes done. You can have something happen, your characters are going along, and then something happens, and it changes everything. And as you keep going, you build up an expectation, but then there's another twist. And all of a sudden, well, wait a minute, things have changed. The person who you thought was the hero dies. So then what? Where is the story going? So in a very simple form, using dialogue and excellent scripting, I might add, it is her story, but she didn't just sit and talk. This was well thought out and well scripted. So that was a very good observation. There is what can be described as more than one climax. And the conclusion, of course, is the Olympics, her participation in the Olympics. That is the whole purpose and goal of this particular 3-minute piece. And when you are producing your features, you must know, what is my goal? What is the purpose? What do I want people to know by the end of my video production? And that will help guide how you do it, what you do it, and how you pace your introduction, your climax, and then your conclusion. So on that note, how many of you would like to stop now and go have some lunch?